All right, I think we're live now. All right, so I don't think anybody's in here just yet. Hopefully this works tonight. We had technical problems last week, but crossing my fingers that everything will work just fine tonight and we'll be able to hold a live broadcast just like normal. So while I'm waiting for everybody to join, go ahead and get my normal disclosures out of the way. If you've never been to one of my live broadcasts, I do these pretty much every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central, unless something gets in the way, like technical difficulties happened last week, couldn't get it done. And I don't have a topic planned. It's pretty much just an Ask Me Anything session. I do my best to answer every comment in here. So, ask away. I'll do my best to get an answer for it. Good evening. We got a couple people in here. Jess B. Farm, 3 Turns Then Home, Royal Bingle Cattery. There we go. Was Couple. I can't ever get that name right. How are you? Craig Steele. How are you doing? And Charles Langston. Nice day in Paris, Texas. I have been to Paris, Texas. I used to live in Nacogdoches, so I've driven through Paris plenty of times. I bet it is pretty nice down there. It's getting kind of cold again tonight. It's supposed to get down to 31, and the wind has been blowing like 35 miles an hour for the past couple of days. It's just crazy windy outside, but could be a lot worse, that's for sure. Who else we got here? Home gardener Brian Simpson Burgess, home gardening. There we go. Ron Strobel from Tennessee. And Jake and Bake, okay, from Texas. Craig Steele says, so windy here too. Where you at, Craig? I don't remember where you're from. Jess Olson from Minnesota. And LLJ, good evening to you. All is doing well, thank you. Brian Simpson, I'm doing really well. Oh, Olivia is in Missouri, so am I. So I guess we're neighbors, huh? And let's see, Royal Bengal Cattery in Maryland. Craig Steele in Ohio. Yes, I do live in Missouri. I'm in southwest Missouri, the very southwest corner. So it's got, they call it the 4 states. We've got, let's see, it's about 10 minutes from my house to get to Kansas. Oklahoma's about 15-minute drive to get to the Oklahoma border. And then Arkansas is about a 30-minute drive south of us. We're right in the corner. All right, where are we at here? Albany, New York for LLJ. There we go. Jess B. Farm, will you be doing the worm farm again? Yeah, I plan on getting some more worms. If you guys don't know, I did the worm farm, but then I had some problems. Other things going on. I had to move the worms out to the garage for a little while. And they were propped up on something. The whole thing fell over and dumped upside down. Probably the dog's fault, but I can blame him anyway. So I've got to get new worms to start all over again. But I do plan on doing that. I've got somebody locally in the garden club where I got the worms to begin with that has some worms and offered me some, so hopefully be getting those pretty soon. All right, Kurt Steele from Cass City. I'm not sure where that is, but hello to you. Thanks for joining. And Wes Koppel from Illinois. Home Gardening says we're in Montana. So much snow. Well, we're done with snow. Hopefully we're done with snow. I mean, we're not out of the woods yet. We got another month roughly before we can really kind of count on the snow being done, but probably done with the snow. How's the wife doing? Brian Simpson wants to know how the wife is doing. She's doing pretty well. She's finished her radiation treatment a week and a half ago, I think it was. So now she's on I can't remember what the pill's called, but it's like a hormone therapy that she's got to take. Probably going to be taking it for like 10 years. But it's just, it's just a pill. So all in all, doing pretty good. Some minor little side effects from the radiation. Not bad. Kind of like a mild sunburn, I think, mostly. But all in all, she's doing pretty well. So praise God for the healing he's provided there. I think she's done better than what the doctors even expected. And thank you for asking. I appreciate that. All right. Trevor wants to know, when can I wean my baby rabbit? Usually about 8 weeks is a good time. You don't really want to wean any earlier than 8 weeks. But by 8 weeks old, they're usually eating enough food on their own. The mother's they're probably ready to be weaned at that point. Just watch them kind of closely the first couple of days when you remove them from the mother. Make sure what you're looking for is weaning enteritis. Not very common at 8 weeks old, but if you do wean younger than that, it's a very common thing. But it is still something you want to watch out for. Basically, just watch to make sure they don't get diarrhea and stuff. If they have a lot of that, then put them back in with the mom. Let them, have another week or so with the mom. But that's usually by 8 weeks old, they're fine. You can just move them off the mom, no problems. All right, East Mesa Urban Homestead is in the house. Good to see you. Sharon Pace from Kansas City says it's windy there too. I imagine it is. 3 Turns in Home says I'm in South Idaho and the wind is crazy here as well. Yeah, it was so windy. I've had people ask about this, and it has never happened until yesterday. Yesterday we had wind all day long, 30, 35 mile an hour, pretty regular sustained winds, gusts up to about 45, 50 miles an hour. It actually blew the quail hutch over. It was laying up against the trees behind it on its back. So yeah, egg production's probably done for a little while. I'm sure it stressed the birds out like crazy. And I had the little hutch that was just kind of a grow out pen that was next to it. It blew it completely off the pedestal. Never happened before. So I think it was kind of a combination of the high wind and the direction it was blowing, because it was coming from kind of the south. Usually we get wind more from the west blowing to the east, and this was more from the south to the north, and it was a really high wind. So anyway, we're hopefully about done with it. It's supposed to calm down after today. All right, Craig Steele says, I want to get a worm farm going. Looking forward to those videos. Yeah, I did a video on building the worm farm. But, I don't have the worms right now because, again, accidents happen. They all died. Yeah, I think I may have, started with not quite enough worms for that big of a bin. If you guys have seen my worm bin, you can do that in, like a 5-gallon bucket. And I didn't have a whole lot of worms. They will reproduce over time, but they just didn't have enough time to get going before the incident occurred. All right, Brian from Millsburg, Pennsylvania. And let's see. Colton says, have you ever had alpaca? I don't know what you mean by ever had it. Do you mean have I ever raised alpaca? Or have I ever eaten alpaca? Or the answer to both those is no. I've never raised alpaca. I've never eaten alpaca. So no, I've never had alpaca. I do have a friend from a church, the old church that I used to be, I guess I'm technically still an elder of that church. We haven't completely dissolved yet, but we're working on it. We had to close down for financial reasons, but a friend from that church who owns an alpaca farm. He's got 10 or so alpacas on there. He breeds them and, sells the wool or the fur. I don't know if it's called wool. I guess it is. And so I've seen plenty of alpaca, but no, I've never, not me personally, bred them, no. All right, Douglas says, Florida sure is hot today. Looks like a hurricane up your way. Weird, I'm originally a Midwest. Never seen anything like this before. Yeah, it wasn't really like hurricane force winds, but I guess, in a sense it kind of was. It was crazy windy for the past couple of days, but not hot. It was nice. The weather wasn't, the temperature was nice, in the mid 50s, low 60s. Well, I say mid 50s. It was a mid to high 50s is what it was. But yeah, the wind was just incredibly, really bad. All right, where we at here? Chris says, good evening, and I am still waiting for my quail to start laying again. No lights on them. Yeah, it's going to be a little while probably, depending on where you live. It's going to be a little while before they start laying because the days are just so short still. They're getting longer, but they're not there yet. They need about 14 hours a day to lay on a regular basis. So if you don't have lights on them, it's probably going to be, again, depending on where you live, depending on how far south, how far north, or whatever, it's probably going to be another month before they start laying again. All right, James Caswell says, hello everyone from Alabama. Hello to you. Anyone had California quails before? I have not raised them before myself. Sam, I'm sorry, there was two different people saying that, but anyway, Sam, I've not raised California quails myself, but I know that there's some people in here that probably have, so they may be able to speak to that. Oh, excuse me. Armed American says, what's up, Chris? Not much. How are you doing? Will Dwyer said, had a late winter thunderstorm with pea-sized hail here in southwest Michigan today. Wow, that doesn't sound like fun. We had a thunder snow storm happen like a couple of weeks ago. You guys saw my video where we had some snow on the ground. That was what it was. It was like a thunderstorm with snow. It's kind of a weird thing. It's happened a couple of times. I've seen it before, but it's always weird when it's snowing and there's thunder. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't like huge amounts of wind or anything. We didn't get anywhere near as much snow as what they were calling for. I was kind of disappointed. We haven't had a good snow this year, and I kind of wanted at least one. But, oh well. Chris, hi from New York, everyone. My name's Chris too, but this is a different Chris. Square One Farms says, have you ever tried to put quail in a chicken tractor? Pros, cons, other than predator issues. We would like to get them off the wire floors. Well, I've never tried to put them myself in a chicken tractor. I know there are some people that have raised quail in chicken style, chicken tractors. They're not really chicken tractors, but they're very similar to chicken tractors. You can make them out of PVC, you can make them out of a couple of different things. So yeah, I mean, it can definitely be done. The only cons you're really going to look at on that is in a tractor, you're not going to have to worry about the mess so much because you're going to be moving it on a pretty regular basis. Now, if you had them stationary, the mess is going to be a big problem. You're going to have to clean it out on a regular basis. But moving them around, not a big problem. You mentioned predators. Yeah, there will be a little bit easier access for predators. And also parasites or disease. They'll have a slightly higher chance of contracting parasites or disease when they're in contact with the ground. I mean, slightly higher, I mean, who knows? I mean, it just depends on your area as to whether that's really a big threat or not. There are, the parasites and bacteria and disease and things like that live in the ground. So being in contact with the ground does raise the chances, but you may not have a big problem in your area with them. Here, I don't know that that's a big issue either. I do know, I can't say honestly that you're going to have big issues with it. You'd have to it just depends again on your area. I would say try it. Why not? You don't have a whole lot to lose with it. All right, Sam from, where is that? NZ. Where's NZ? Is that New Zealand? I don't know where NZ is. Should I know that? Is that a state? I should probably know that. I have a brain lapses every once in a while. Ori Lane, I think it is, says, hey, Chris, have you ever had a problem with curl toe in baby quail? Yeah, it's happened from time to time. Usually what that is like a late hatch, a quail that takes a long time to hatch. It could be caused by like your incubator temperature being a little bit low or just bad genetics in that bird. It could be caused by a couple of different things. Sometimes it will correct, but oftentimes it becomes just one of those things where the bird just doesn't survive long term because it has a hard time walking, getting to the food, and those kinds of things. It's not something that I've experienced a lot of, but I've had that issue once or twice. And again, I've had a couple of birds that have had that. Some of them have survived just fine and recovered from it, and some of them just kind of deteriorated and never got any better. I ended up calling them, putting them out of their misery. All right, Armed American is in South Carolina. I think I knew that actually. Glenn Sinske, I think it is, from Minnesota. Hello to you. Hey, Rhonda, how are you? Owen Miller says, how are you doing? Is everything going okay? Yeah, everything's going pretty good. No problems. Will Dwyer says, you don't eat alpaca. You shear them for wool. They're too valuable to eat. Yeah, I figured you were probably talking about that, but I wasn't 100% sure. I get asked some strange questions. But yeah, I've never done that. No, I've never raised them myself. And Armed American left a bunch of pictures of a rabbit with, looks like explosions and a gun and a cowboy smiley face. So I don't know what that means exactly, but Gator Green says, Chris, my 2 does had 19 babies total. I just put up an automatic waterer for my quails and my rabbits, thanks to you showing me how to do it. Awesome. Congratulations on the new babies. 19 is quite a few rabbits. I cannot wait until we get past the freeze, the threat of freeze anyway, and be able to put the automatic watering system back up. It's so much easier than carrying water out every day and having to water all the animals. So congratulations again on your litters, I guess it is, 2 does with 19 babies. That's a nice couple of litters right there. Jess B Farm says, hey Chris, how can I avoid mastitis on my does? I've never had a problem with that. I did talk to a breeder one time. I was looking at getting some Tamuk rabbits, and I still haven't been able to lock those down. If you don't know what Tamuks are, they're a Texas A&M developed breed. They look like a New Zealand white, but they're very, very heat tolerant. So you can breed them in the summertime, which, a lot of places you can do that anyway. I just don't do that with most of my rabbits. Anyway, enough about that. The point is, she was talking about using like metal nest boxes and things are causing mastitis in the rabbits. She only used wood nest boxes. She really didn't like a lot. I mean, she checked out my YouTube channel and did not like my videos, disagreed with a whole lot of what I was saying. But again, there's more than one way to skin a cat. She was kind of a 4-H person, which nothing wrong with 4-H. It's great. But they do kind of tend to have, like she didn't believe in feeding hay to your rabbits, pellets only. There were some very strict things that she was doing with those. But she was talking about like wire nest boxes and things like that causing mastitis. I have never had a problem with mastitis in any of my rabbits. It's never been an issue for me. So, I think that's probably somewhat a genetic issue. If it's, some rabbits are just more prone to it than other rabbits are. If you have a rabbit that's prone to it, the key is to keep everything clean. And you might look at, some things, like I said, that, in that situation, you might go to something that's a little bit less likely to scratch the rabbit as it's climbing in and out of the nest box. So wire, metal, some of those kinds of things might be kind of bad. You might want to stick with, actually, I don't think she used wood. I think she used metal, like sheet metal type. Well, not sheet metal, but galvanized metal nest boxes. They had smooth, rounded lips on them, and that might help with that. So anyway. All right. Peter Litvinchuk, I think it is. Hello from Seattle, Washington. Eddie Shirez, hello to you. Trevor Kuhn, I think it is. How do you get rid of rabbits if you have too many? I eat them. That's what I do with them. But if you're looking at, like, you don't want to eat them, you don't want to cull them, and you want to get rid of them, I mean, post them for free on Craigslist. Somebody will come and get them. I've done that with a few breeders that, I don't generally eat the breeders when they're done. It just doesn't seem right to do that. So I usually just find somebody that wants to take them as a pet if they're suitable for pets. Not all of them are. Some of them are just a little bit too aggressive. But I post them on Craigslist for free. People have come and got them. All right. Eddie Shirez says, can I grow out 2 does from different litters together to be my breeders? Well, you probably can. It's probably best to keep them separate, though. They may bond and they may get along just fine, but you may have problems whenever they have babies. Does tend to get very territorial, especially when they have babies around. So it may be best to keep them in separate pens. But yeah, you can absolutely keep them for breeders. And if you want to try to keep them together, depending on how old they are now, the younger the better would be to house them together. And make sure you do that in a cage that don't take one rabbit to the other one's cage. Find a cage that's neutral to both of them, put them both in at the same time, so you're not invading on one of them's space, if that makes sense. All right, Teresa H says, can you feed rabbits on raw, undried hay? If I plant my own alfalfa, will this wear their teeth down appropriately? Yeah, it's not a bad idea to feed that to them. Here's what I would caution you with about that, is you don't want to, and yeah, it will help a little bit with wearing their teeth down, but hay alone is not really enough to keep their teeth worn down. Just get a couple of sticks. Make sure it's a safe tree that they can eat. Most of them are. Just look it up on Google, safe trees for rabbits to eat, and you'll find a whole list of what's not safe. Don't feed that. But there's a couple, like willow's a really good one for them. It does kind of has a natural deworming properties. I've never had problems with worms in my rabbits, but still, nothing wrong with a little bit of a natural deworming property in that, and to serve 2 purposes at once. Give them something like that to chew on so that it will help them keep their teeth worn down. I use untreated 2x4s. Don't use pressure treated wood, of course, but I just take little chunks of 2x4 that's untreated. It's pine, basically. Throw it in there and let them chew on that, and they'll chew on it and chew on it, and they'll have a great time with it. But excuse me, what I would caution you about with raw, undried hay is you don't want it to mold. So you don't want to get like big, don't want to cut like a whole bunch of it at one time and store it up in a big pile and feed them little bits of that every day, because it may start molding in the center. If you're going to keep it for any prolonged period of time, you do need to dry it out, and you need to spread it out thin on a screen or something like that where it gets plenty of ventilation to dry out so it doesn't mold. So that would be my only caution about that. But as far as feeding it to them, it's fine. Go ahead. If you want to grow your own alfalfa and you want to cut it and bring it to them every day, fine, do it. No problems with that whatsoever. All right. Brad Smith says, hi, Chris. I bought some chicken eggs to hatch about a month ago, and when I put the eggs on lockdown, within a few hours, they died. What do you think happened? Boy, that's unfortunate. So you bought chicken eggs, you went through the regular incubation process, but when you put them into lockdown, they died within a few hours. My guess might be, a couple of things could be happening right there. If you're sure your incubator is reading the right temperature, which seems like it should be, if they developed really well up until lockdown, then the issue might be if they started to pip the shell before you put them into lockdown, and you opened the incubator while they were pipping the shells, where they had little holes in the shell, and that caused the rush of, the drop in humidity, real quick drop in humidity, may have caused them to shrink wrap inside their egg. Another thing that could happen is if you added a lot of water at that point to bring the humidity up during lockdown. If you brought it up too high, like 85% or above, then they could have drowned. That's just too much water in the air. They may not have had enough oxygen. It's really hard for me to troubleshoot without knowing all the specifics of it, and it's hard to, even then, it's hard to troubleshoot everything that could have happened. Those are a couple options. Make sure, I would say, that you've got the little vent plugs in the lid of your incubator. Take those out and throw them away. You don't need it. You need to ventilate your incubator. So those are a couple of things that may have happened. Hopefully, you can leave another comment below if you want to, or in the chat itself if you want to. And if that's, doesn't sound like that's one of the things, we'll kind of try to troubleshoot a little bit more. But those off the top of my head seem like the most likely issues. All right. Rhonda says oh boy, I skipped a bunch of chat. There we go. Rhonda says, my second batch of quails are hatching now, typo. And I have 15 out of 42, but they aren't done. 6 more, and I'll have 50% hatch rate this time. Nice. I know it's getting better every time, but don't hold out. I mean, don't think you're only going to get 50%. I bet that they're going to do much, much better than that. So well done. I know the last hatch, you had it wasn't the best hatch in the world, but you had a decent one. You kept with it. You stuck with it, and you're getting an even better hatch rate this time. So good job. Keep at it, and you will get better and better every time. All right, Colton Owen says, what would be the best food for pheasant be? What would be the best food for pheasant? I honestly don't know. I don't raise pheasants. I would assume that they would be very similar to quail in that, like game bird feed would probably be a good feed for them, but I'd have to research that a little bit. I'm sorry, I can't really answer that one for you. All right, Rusty Nail says, anyone ever feed the quail Japanese beetles? I had thousands of them in my yard every summer. I think I put some in the quail hutch and they couldn't eat them. I mean, they chased them, they wanted to, but they just couldn't do it. It's like they couldn't, they're a little bit big for a quail to get down. I know chickens will go crazy for them, but, so no, I don't know that, I don't know that it'd work. You can try it. All right, Rhonda Stair says, Green Gator better than me by 2. LOL, awesome 2 does. What are we talking about again? I've forgotten. Oh, that's the 19 babies. Okay, there we go. Now I'm on track. So Rhonda says, Green Gator better than me by 2. LOL, awesome 2 does, 17 babies total. Congrats on the bunnies. Well, 17 out of 2 does is not bad either. 3 Turns and Home says, my baby bunnies are 3 weeks old now, and I have been giving them some hay and pellets in the cage, and they are really starting to show interest and playing with the water bottle. Yep, at 3 weeks old, they really start to explore the cage a lot more. And they'll start eating out of the feeders and stuff probably by right about that time, 3 to 4 weeks old. They're not going to eat that exclusively, but they will start eating a little bit of that food. But again, by the time they're 8 weeks old, that's pretty much what they're doing. They're just eating all the time. And Jesse says, hey, Chris, how's the rabbits? Well, they're doing pretty well. Let's see, how old are the babies right now? About 2 weeks old, so they've got their eyes open. They're starting to get in and out of the nest box. The last couple of days, a couple of days ago, they were out of the nest box. I put them back in. The next day, they were out again. A couple of them were. I put them back in, and now they can just get in and out on their own, so I don't have to do that anymore. But they're doing really well. Looks like I've got 8, I think, in there now, or maybe it's 7. I think I miscounted originally. I think I thought I had 8. I had lost 2. I think I had 7 and had lost 2. So it was like a litter of 9 to begin with, but 2 of them got lost. So now I'm down to 7. But they all look good, healthy. Mom's still just a little bit territorial, a little bit aggressive with me when I get in the cage. She's calmed down just a little bit, not quite as bad as she was. But she's definitely nervous and protective of those babies. And that's okay. All right, Rhonda Snare says, right, Chris, I can't wait to do automatic waters for the rabbits either. Do much easier and more peace of mind. Yeah, automatic watering is so much easier. All right, Mason's Adventure says, hey, Chris, I fermented my quail, chicken, and ducks feeds. Have you ever thought about fermenting feed? If you haven't, you should try it. Yeah, I'm familiar with fermenting feed. I just don't really see the point to it, I don't know, it's a little bit of extra work. And, I work a full-time job. I'm pretty busy, trying to get a couple of videos out a week. By the way, I only got 1 video out this week. I do want to apologize for that. I had some computer problems. Thought my computer was going to completely crash and not be usable anymore. but got it working again. And but it did limit me with how many videos I could get out this week. I just couldn't get it done. But anyway, yeah, as far as fermented feed, yeah, it's just a little bit of extra work. And I know it's not that much work, but it is extra work. And, right now things are pretty easy. If I make it too much more work, it's going to be a little bit difficult to keep up with. And I just don't want to add the extra work in. All right. Three Turns at Home says, and I actually caught the does nursing them one morning. I've caught that a few times. It's pretty rare, but it has happened. It's kind of one of those things where you almost feel like you should just like be real quiet and back away and, like sneak away from her like, oops, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you kind of thing. All right. Morley Knight says, back again. Rabbits have arrived. I now have a buck and a doe, Callie and a mixed doe. First breeding will be in a month from now. My setup was truly inspired by yours. Thank you so much. Well, awesome. Congratulations on your new rabbits. And I'm glad to that the videos that I put out have helped you a little bit with that. Good luck with the breeding. I'm sure it's going to go just fantastic. Jesse Chavez says, hey, Chris, what makes rabbits not catch sometimes? What makes rabbits not catch? I'm not sure what that means. Not catch? Not breed? Or not be like... Are you saying that they bred, but maybe the doe didn't get pregnant from that? There's a number of different things that could cause that, if that's what you're talking about. But I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question. I'm going to answer it like it is that question. Okay, so there could be a couple of reasons. First of all, you may not have had a successful breeding. If you didn't see a fall off, the buck didn't fall off of the doe, it's pretty unmistakable what I'm talking about, then it probably wasn't a successful breeding. But you could also run into some problems. There could be the doe just may, for whatever reason, just not have been ready to breed at that time. Could be she's too young. It could be that, if it's been hot where you're at, over 85 degrees, it could be that the buck became sterile, at least temporarily for a little while. It could be that the doe had some kind of illness or something that caused her to abort the pregnancy early. There's a number of different things that can factor into that. It's really hard to pinpoint exactly why. I would say probably 90% of the time, if you have successful fall-offs, the doe is going to be pregnant. But it doesn't always happen. I mean, just for whatever reason, it's hard to say. If it's a continued issue with the same doe, then I would look at replacing her with a new doe. All right. Morley says, oh yeah, Nova Scotia, Canada here. Ground is just starting to thaw. Well, I don't live in a place where the ground is frozen all winter long. It's just that we don't stay below freezing for prolonged periods of time, but it does go below freezing quite frequently, so I can't leave the automatic watering system outside. All right, Mary Sunshine says, my kiddo won't forgive me if I raise and kill little rabbits. No, your kid. How your kiddos deal with it? Well, my kids are grown. I do have a stepson now, but my kids are grown and out of the house, so it's not a problem for me anymore. Even my grandkids, though, they're young and they don't have any problem with me eating the rabbits. I don't know if they've quite made the connection that rabbit was once the baby rabbit they were playing with in the cage, but I've told them. They seem to kind of get it, but I don't know if they've really made that connection. It's just been something we've always done, so it's never been a real issue with my kids. I think it's important to teach them where the food comes from. They realize that that chicken nugget that they're eating used to be a live chicken running around. It's a little bit easier for them to make that kind of transition, and you do it with respect, though. You don't want to think of it as it's okay to just go around and kill things for no reason. That serves a purpose. It's food. It's not just to kill it for fun. It's not that. And that's what I think it's important to make sure that that's clear to them. All right, Rhonda says, clearly you're doing something right. You got how many people following your suggestions? And we're all thriving because of you. Well, I don't know. Don't give me too much credit here. I'm just putting out there what I know. But like you said before, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Yep, for sure. Yeah, there's lots of ways to do things. And a lot of times, the things that I suggest, the things that I mean, that's the way I do it. But that doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. One of the most common things I get is people coming in and just hateful as can be with me. I've got a comment I've got to respond to. I saw it come through email, but I haven't responded yet, of somebody that said I was just such a horrible person because I think it was on my rabbit breeding video. I was a horrible person because I used wire cages, and those will hurt the rabbit's feet. And how could I do it? How could I ever do such a thing to a poor little innocent rabbit? And obviously, they're confused. I mean, they mean well. And I always have to take my time to respond to those kinds of things because my initial reaction is, you don't know what you're talking about, but that's, I mean, there are there is truth to that, that wire cages can be bad for rabbits. But again, you're talking about like the little pet rabbits, the show rabbits, the, you know, those kinds of things that they're just not, they can't handle that for sure. But, you know, meat rabbits are different. And if you think about it, rabbits in the wild, I mean, they live in briar bushes and stuff. They're okay to walk on wire. It's fine. I actually did a video on that a while back. It's been quite a while, about wire cages and the studies that have been done on them and what actually causes sore hocks. And it's really more of a genetics issue than it is a flooring cage issue. And they can get sore hocks on solid wood floors. They can get sore hocks on anything. So anyway, I guess my point to that is, if you want to keep your rabbits on a solid wood floor, go ahead. Here's what you're going to have to deal with, though, is it's going to be a huge mess. You got to clean it on a regular basis. And to me, a wire cage is just so much more sanitary than a solid bottom floor. Whereas you may be a little bit worried about them getting sore hocks on a wire cage, which I'll say none of my rabbits have ever gotten. But what is more of a concern for me is them getting urine scald on a solid floor that doesn't let the waste fall through. And that is a real concern. So anyway, again, more than one way to do it. If you want to do that and you want to clean cages every single day, go for it. No problem. But that's not the way I choose to do it. All right. Toast 3 says, any tips on aggressive female quail picking on birds in the flock? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do with that. One would be just eat the aggressive birds. Fixes it. Done. There's a lot of people that really subscribe to that. They cull hard for aggression, and I think there's something to that. One reason, and I can understand why you wouldn't want to do that necessarily, but one reason you might want to is because a lot of times those traits can be passed on. So if you continue to breed that bird, especially if she is the most aggressive and really picks on the other birds, she might hinder their egg production because of stress. So most of the eggs you're getting are from that aggressive bird. And if that trait gets passed on, then you just end up with more and more aggressive birds over time. Now, it may or may not be a genetic trait with that specific bird. She may or may not pass that on. But that is one way to handle that. The other way is if you might remove her from the cage for a little while, leave her by herself, a week or two, something like that, and then put her back in the cage. And that kind of reintroduces her as a new bird to an established flock, and they might gang up on her and kind of put her in her place when she tries to fight with them. If you're not worried about them laying eggs, you can bring down the amount of light. When they're not sexually active, when they're not, in the breeding season, so to speak, they're not laying eggs, the roosters aren't crowing, they're much, much calmer, much more docile. So those are a couple of things that you might be able to do with that. Me personally, if it's a real aggressive one and she's picking on all the other birds in the flock and she's causing like pecking at their eyes and those kinds of things, I would remove her, I would call her. But that's just how I would do it. All right. Was it? Oh, excuse me. Talking for a long time, I'm dry. That helped. Who is this? Is it Riza Esfahani? I think I got that right. Says, hey, Chris, over here from Las Vegas, Nevada. We just got started with meat rabbits. It's hard to butcher the first one. Oh, was it hard to butcher your first one? I think it was a little bit difficult in a weird sort of way. I grew up as a hunter and a fisherman, and I don't know that I can actually remember the first animal I ever shot and skinned. It's just kind of one of those things that's always been, part of my life. So that part wasn't difficult, but it was a little bit different, dispatching that rabbit up close and personal, so to speak. And that is a little bit of a hurdle to get over. The thing I would say is just, what you're going to do. Don't hesitate. Do it and just get it done. Try not to think about it. Don't overthink it. Don't focus on it. Don't just do it and get it done. Don't prolong it. That's going to make it worse. Yeah, it was a little bit tricky. I think the first one, just because again, it's up close and personal, and I was a little bit worried about, am I going to mess that up? Am I not? But it all goes fine. And once you get the first one down, it's not too bad. All right. Will Dwyer says, can you use your extra rabbits for dog and cat food? You can use your extra rabbits for dog and cat food. Just do a YouTube search, you'll find a tutorial video. Yeah, you can for sure. If you want to raw feed your animals, then yeah, absolutely. You can use them for dog and cat food. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I don't produce, nearly enough rabbits to feed my dog on a regular basis but it's a possibility you can do it. All right, Butch Thayer, I think it is. Yeah, Thayer Jr. says, I'm in Prescott, Michigan. How's it going? Well, it's going well here. I bet it's pretty cold there. All right, Christian Acevedo says, Chris, hello. Do you use to store? Sorry, Chris, hello. What do you use to store quail and rabbit feed? And also, for the 5-gallon watering system, does the bucket matter? Okay. What I use to store my feed in, my quail feed is out by the quail hutches, so I use a galvanized metal trash can. It's a small one. It's like I don't know, 12-gallon or something like that, maybe. I don't know. It's not very big. It holds a 50-pound bag of food almost exactly. It's just almost too much food for it, but it fits. That's what I use for them. For the rabbits, I use a big Rubbermaid tub. It's just right underneath the edge of that rabbit hutch, and that works for the rabbit feed. The bucket for the 5-gallon watering system, the only thing that matters about it is you use a food grade bucket. That's it. As long as it's food grade, it doesn't matter if it's round or square or whatever, but just make sure it's food grade. All right. Rhonda says snare. Oh, and I would also say try to use one that's not clear. A clear one, if it gets any sunshine at all whatsoever, it's going to grow algae really, really bad, which won't hurt your rabbits. Algae's okay, but it could clog up your watering system, and it just doesn't look good. So try to use one that's not clear. And I wouldn't use black either, especially if it gets any kind of sunshine. It's best to keep it out of the sun altogether. You don't want it to heat up, but if it's black and it gets any sunshine whatsoever, it's going to really heat up and get really, really hot. All right, Rhonda says, I don't know if I've ever seen a black, well, I've seen black buckets. But anyway, yeah, not a good idea probably if they get any sun. But again, really a bad idea at all to have it in the sun. Keep it in the shade. All right, Rhonda says, my neighbor actually asked me today if she could buy some rabbit meat off of me. Yeah, I sold some rabbits a couple of weeks ago, actually, to somebody that contacted me through somebody else, wanted to know if I'd sell them a few dressed rabbits, so I did. It's not something I do on a regular basis, but if somebody wants to buy a couple, okay, no problem. All right, Will Dwyer says, rabbits don't need to have something to chew on to wear their teeth down. Rodents do, but rabbits aren't rodents. Well, that's true. Rabbits aren't rodents. There are some rabbits, though, and it's more on individual rabbit basis, that do have problems with their teeth growing more than other rabbits do. And rabbits' teeth do continue to grow. That's one of the reasons why they chew on things. But you're right. They don't absolutely have to have, most of the time, something to chew on. I like to give them something to chew on because it is something they enjoy doing. It's just a natural thing for them. But they don't actually absolutely have to have it. All right. Jesse Chavez says, hey, Chris, what makes a rabbit doe not catch sometime? I think we answered that already. I hope I got it answered anyway. All right. Tippy says, I've only eaten rabbit once when I was in Chinatown, and it tasted awful. Is it an acquired taste, or did I just have a bad experience? I would say you probably had a bad experience. Rabbit is a very mild meat. It doesn't really taste like much of anything. So it tastes like whatever you cook it with. I usually cook it with chicken stock or something like that. But, I tell people all the time, I could cook rabbit and pass it off as chicken, and you'd never know the difference. Other than it being like a little bit lean and maybe a little bit drier. It's very similar to chicken. You're not going to have, it doesn't have an awful taste to it, in my opinion. Who knows? Who knows what they cooked it with? Maybe that's what made it taste awful. I don't know. All right. Jesse Chavez says, hey, Chris, will pine cones be good for rabbits to chew on? Pine cones are a good option for rabbits. They make great little toys for them. So, yeah, it's a great option. All right. Christian Acevedo says, Chris, if I were to burrow a chicken rooster, how long do I need to keep it for start fertile eggs, and how long would they fertile? Okay, borrow a chicken rooster, I think is what you're saying. I don't know. I'm not a chicken expert. I can tell you with quail, but with quail, usually what you're going to want to do if you're going to rotate roosters in and out of your flock, is you want to leave them in there for about a week and a half, something like that, to make sure that they, service, so to speak, all of the hens in there. And generally, you can expect a hen to be fertile for about 10 days after, 10 days kind of the max after the rooster is removed. I don't know if chickens are the same or not. I'd have to look into that to find out. All right. Munir Vermeer, I don't know if I got your name right. I'm sorry if I didn't. Says, good luck for you. I'm a breeder rabbit from Morocco. Uh, Thank you for everything. I don't speak English very well, uh, but I watch techniques on video. Well, hey, thanks so much for stopping by. I'm going to apologize now because I know I talk way too fast for anybody that doesn't speak English as their primary language. But thank you for stopping in here and talking to us. I think your English was perfectly fine. I could understand what you were saying, and I admire you for making the effort to speak to us in a language that is not yours. I'm trying to learn Spanish, and I'm nowhere near good enough to be able to carry on much of a conversation. All right, Brad Smith says, the eggs did not pip yet. Okay, we're back to talking about why your eggs didn't, why they died during lockdown. Those are, I kind of gave a couple of suggestions there. I don't know that I have much else to go with. Those would be probably the most common things, unless maybe, if you had, I don't know the room temperature that they were in. That could be an issue. If it was a very chilly room, opening the incubator, getting them out of the egg turner and those kinds of things, they may have chilled too much, but that's unlikely. It's possible, but unlikely. All right. I'm sorry, Brad. I just don't know what else to tell you right offhand. Jesse Chavez says, hey, Chris, how many quail males do I need with my females? Usually about 1 to every 5 or 6 quail. I usually go about 1 to every 5, and then I throw an extra one in. So, I might have like 20 hens, so 1 to every 5 would be 4, but I'll go ahead and keep 5 roosters in there, just in case something happens to one of them. That's a pretty good ratio, though. All right, Will Dwyer says, put Japanese beetle pheromone bait on your quail hutch. I put it on my chicken coop. Yeah, that would work very well. I don't know if the quail are able to catch them and eat them very well, but yeah, I'm sure it works great for the chickens. All right, Royal Bengal Cattery. I'm having a hard time talking all of a sudden. Says, first time hatched quail eggs, 120 eggs, 56 hatched, jumbo wild, and the rest not fertile. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. It's not a terrible, it's not a great hatch rate, 56 out of 120, but if the rest of them were not fertile, then that's a pretty good deal. You actually did pretty well with that. And 56 is a pretty good number of birds, so I wouldn't be too disappointed with that. All right, Dan Gingle says, Colton, feed 28% feed till 16 weeks, and then a 20% game bird mix. I think we're talking about the, what do they call them? I just drew a blank. Good grief. I can't get the words out. Somebody was asking about raising, not partridge, but, you guys know what I'm talking about. That's what he's talking about, I believe. All right, Jesse Chavez says, hey, Chris, what's a good incubator for hatching quail? Honestly, just about any of them are going to be fine. If you've got the ability to get, like Farm Innovations, those are sold at most box stores. A Little Giant, sold at most box stores. Those are going to do just fine. Pheasants, there we go. Thank you. And that was Dan. Dan brought that up. Yeah, we're talking about raising the pheasants. There we go. Thank you. Anyway, okay, Little Giant's good. Farm Innovation's good. Any of those styrofoam incubators like that, they're all going to be pretty close to the same. I hear really good reviews about the Hovabators, so that may be something to look into as well. Those are going to do great, depending on how many you want to hatch. Now, if you just want to hatch really small amounts, there are some, what's the name? I can't remember. Some little bitty Joel, something. I can't remember what they're called. But some small incubators that do like 10, maybe 5 or 6 eggs, something like that. They have really good results with those too. All right. Where are we at here? Chris Buck says, just started. How are we doing on time? 15 minutes to go. Chris Buck says, just started my first batch of quail chicks, 1 to 3 days old. I'm going to feed a blend of 50% mealworms, 50% game bird feed, ground to a fine powder. I've heard to wait to feed dried mealworm. Will I be okay? Well, if you're going to grind the mealworm up to a powder and put that in with their feed, it's fine. The concern about feeding small chicks mealworms is that they start to associate, and you'll notice this in your birds whether you feed them mealworms or not, but they start to associate the mealworm with toes. I mean, they look a lot like a quail toe. So they'll start picking at the other bird's toes, and you'll see them do that sometimes, even if you don't feed them worms. So that's the concern with feeding chicks, mealworms. But that's more like whole live mealworms or bigger mealworms. If you're going to grind them up, there's no concern with that. That's fine. I don't know that you need to go through the effort. If you're feeding them a game bird starter, that's really everything that they need, and you don't need to grind that up. If it's a regular crumble feed, they'll eat it just the way it is. But if you want to do it, go for it. Nothing wrong with that. All right, J Dog's Place says, howdy from the third coast. I don't know what that means exactly, but hello and thanks for joining. All right, Square Body LT says, only one video. At least we have you live tonight. Well, yeah, what kind of earthworms are you planning to get? Yeah, these would be, well, thanks for that. I appreciate that you guys come and join the live video. When I only put out one video in the week, I try to get 2 out every week plus the live video. I wish I could do more, but it's more work than you would think to keep up with even that much. Anyway, the kind of worms that I would use if they're composting worms, they're not really earthworms. They're red wigglers would be the ones that I would be getting. Those are the ones I had before. Those are the ones you want to use for like worm farms. They just do a much better job than like night crawlers you pull out of your yard or something like that. They're just built for composting material down. So those would be what I'd go with. All right. Rhonda says, Mary, I have 4 children under the age of 10 and they're all fine with it. I guess we have always taught them from day one where their food came from and we don't lie to them. Yeah, you're referring to somebody asking about their kids not ever forgiving them for killing a rabbit. That's a good response to that, Rhonda. Thank you. All right, Mason's Adventure says, hi, Chris. My duck eggs will go on lockdown next Thursday. I have 7 eggs. Ducks are more work to incubate because you have to cool them off to room temperature every day. Really? You have to cool duck eggs off to room temperature? I've never heard that before. Interesting. Will Dwyer says, overweight does will have fat deposits clogging their uterus, preventing conception. That's a good suggestion, Will. I didn't even think about that. You're right. So who was asking me about why a rabbit didn't catch? If that's what you're talking about, yeah, it could be that the doe is overweight. That very well could be the issue. All right, Rhonda says, again, to Mary, continue. My one daughter likes eggs so much, my husband decided to tell her where they come from. And I'm like, oh no, honey, don't tell her. And I proceeded to tell her chicken babies come from eggs. There we go. Yeah, tell her with a quail. That was one of my favorite things to do whenever I take quail eggs to like a dinner or something like that. People always say, like deviled quail eggs. They're always amazed by those, and the women especially always, oh, those are so cute. Where did you get those? And I said, well, they're quail eggs. Where did you get quail eggs? Well, they came out of a quail butt. I don't know why. It makes me laugh every time. The look is always kind of funny. But all right, Rhonda, I'm pretty easily amused if you guys haven't figured that out. Rhonda says, Mary, continuing my daughter and I kid you not, at 5 years old, was like, I don't like chickie babies anyway. Priceless, yeah. Armed American has a picture of a bunch of bummies and says, hit the like button. Thank you so much, Armed American. I appreciate that. All right. Eddie Shira says, Chris, when are you going to start incubating? Probably before too long. I want to wait till we're past the frost. I don't run any kind of electric out to my hutches to keep it warm. And it's a little bit chilly for me to be putting birds outside right now. I don't like to keep them. I don't want to keep them inside for more than just a couple of weeks. I want to keep them in the brooder for a couple of weeks and then right outside. And I really need to wait for a little bit warmer weather. So it'll probably be towards the 1st of May, somewhere right around in there, last week of April before I start incubating again. All right. Morley Knight says, here's a rabbit feed question. Anything wrong with filling the J feeder and going away for a weekend rather than half cup a day? I bought one at $16, then built 2 from aluminum for free. Nice. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't want to free feed them all the time, but just for a weekend, it's fine. Go for it. All right. The bigger thing I would worry about is making sure they don't run out of water during that time. All right. Armed Americans asking everybody to hit the like button with a couple of turkey pictures here. All right. What is this? RSL82568 says, I have 40 kids. 40 kids. Oh, I think that's probably kits. Sorry. Video froze for a second. Somebody called me. I use my phone to shoot video, and somebody called me right in the middle of shooting video. They'll have to wait. I'll call them back. All right, so I have 40 kits. My rabbits farm is doing well. I've been selling them and dispatching them. This is my second batch of kits, I think it is. I learned a lot from you in Living Tradition Homestead. Living Tradition Homestead is a great channel. If you guys haven't checked it out, go check them out. Very, very nice family, and they do a video a day pretty much. Just great stuff. Do a lot more than just rabbits, quail. They do a little bit of that stuff, but they have a full-on homestead, so you get a lot more out of there. But yeah, thank you so much for the kind comments there, and I'm glad that you find my videos helpful. And again, go watch some Living Traditions videos. They're great. Robin Sneer says, I half and half in my rabbit cages, and I agree, so much easier. I had my rabbit in a cage with bedding for about 6 months, and I will never go back to it. Cleaned it daily, and she still was soaked daily. Yeah, that's the problem you run into with solid bottom or bedding or any of that kind of stuff with it. All right, Chicken Nugget says, I had my first quail, or I had my first eggs that didn't hatch. I am a little disappointed, but I got 6 out of 7 chicks that hatched. That's not bad. That's pretty good. I wouldn't complain about that. I wouldn't complain about that at all. All right, RSL82568 says, my name is Scott. I will probably forget that, but I'll try to remember. And says, I have also used wire cages, but I place a small board so that they can lay on, but I have to clean it every day. I saw your video. You have something that they consider lay on. Yeah, I do. I do put something in there for them to lay on. I think, I use the tiles right now, but I think I'm going to go back, at least with my buck, to the, they make a plastic one that snaps into the cage and has slots in it. Are we still going on the video? Can you guys hear me okay? All right, I just noticed the video may looks like it's kind of frozen there. All right, somebody said yes. I guess we're still going. It's frozen on my end, but everybody can still hear me. Okay, well, I'm going to keep talking then. We'll just, hopefully it's good. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, resting mats. All right, so yeah, they make a plastic one that has slots in it, and it clips into the cage. That to me was a little bit cleaner, especially with my buck. My buck's just nasty. He likes to just lay on that, tile, and he just, relieves himself right there and doesn't bother getting up, or he gets filthy. The doe's not so bad, but yeah, it's a problem with him. But yeah, so I'm thinking about changing that up. Chicken Nuggets is from Fort Worth, Texas, and Armed American says, God bless Texas. Yes, indeed. I lived in Texas for a while. It was a nice place. Rebecca says, hey, Chris, have you ever processed your whole quail flock in order to start over again? Never the entire quail flock, but I've done large portions of it for sure. Will Dwyer says, I have 2 cats that have been on a raw rabbit for 10 months. They each go through 1/4 pound mixture of ground up muscle, bone, organs, and egg yolk daily. They are a lot more healthy now. Yeah, I bet that is a good diet for them. God's Outdoor Disciples says, hey Chris, just got my first 24 quail. Thanks for all the help and videos you put out. You're awesome. Can I feed my quail earthworms? If so, what's the best way to do so? Well, yeah, you should be able to feed them earthworms. I don't know that it's the absolute best diet for them, but there's nothing wrong with it. You can just simply put the earthworms in there. I don't know that there's anything else that you have to do, anything special. Just put them in there and let the quail go after it. They may or may not take right to them right away. It takes them a little while to kind of figure out how to eat something like that. And you may need to add some grit as well. Not like to their feed, but just on the side, like free choice. They can have as much as they want. When they're eating something besides like commercial crumble, they do need the grit to help in their crop, basically, to help grind up the food that they're eating. You don't need to worry about that when you're feeding them, commercial quail food or game bird food. But when they are eating other things, then they do need that grit. So that would be something to consider. All right, Chris says, I think chickens are similar to quail in their fertility. Watch to make sure your rooster is mounting. It may take him some days or a week to adjust to the flock. Yep, good advice there, Chris. Chicken Nugget says, me and my dad are thinking about getting quail. Do fully grown quail need heat lamps in cold weather? No, fully grown quail, they do fine as long as you give them a wind block. I know, and again, it doesn't stay incredibly cold here for long periods of time, but it gets down to 0, a little bit below 0 for some time, and the quail do just fine with that. And I know a lot of the viewers that live way up north and have said they've never had problems with them either. So you don't really need heat lamps for them. What you do need is to give them a place to get out of the wind. Eddie Shirez says, how many eggs do you usually like to incubate? As many as I can get. I usually don't incubate over about 50 because that's about as many as I want to deal with at a time. 50 to 60, somewhere right around in there, but it just depends on how many eggs I can get at the time. Jess B Farm says, hey Chris, what is the best dual purpose quail breed in your opinion? My favorite is the jumbo pharaohs or the jumbo meat makers. They are just, they lay a bigger egg and they are a nice big bird. So they all make a pretty good dual purpose bird. Either one of them. Jumbo meat makers are slightly bigger birds, and I think the jumbo pharaohs lay slightly bigger eggs. So it's, whichever one you want. And again, slightly bigger is not a huge amount bigger. So if you're looking for a bigger bird, then the jumbo meat makers would be the way to go. All right. Todd is here, says, hello, y'all, just walked in. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. We're getting real close to the end here, but I guess you probably sent that message probably 15 minutes ago or so anyway. Armed American says, no need for heat lamps with full-grown quails, just a nice boxed-in area that is weatherproof. Yep, good suggestion. What are we talking? Armed America says, yeah, prayers with you and the people in Alabama. Are we talking, was that the one that had the tornado that go through there? Yeah, definitely praying for those people there. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I know firsthand what tornadoes are like. Horrible, horrible things. So definitely my prayers are with you. Kurt Stewart says, I'm a diabetic and been eating raw quail eggs every day, and my sugar has been great. Fantastic. There's some real science behind, raw quail eggs being very much a cure-all for, just all kinds of diseases. And there's some real scientific evidence around that. All right. Hello to you. Reap what you sow, Homestead. Morley Knight says, all right, I'm out, Chris. Thank you very much for what you do. Everyone here, God bless. And God bless each one of you. Mo out. Good evening to you. Good night to you, I should say. And thanks for stopping by. Rebecca, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. I appreciate that. Gator Green says, will you put up a quail video when you process them? I can't do that because YouTube gets very picky about, they don't like to see animals being processed on video. I've done it before with quail and I've done it before with rabbits. Both of those got marked as inappropriate content. So you have to be like 18 and signed in to view them, and it's not good. It makes my channel look bad because it's got adult content marked on it. So I don't know that I'll do that again, but who knows? We'll see. All right. Yeah, James Caswell said, hoping my test hatch with the incubator and duck eggs goes well. Then got to make some quail eggs so I can start raising quail again. Well, I'm sure that they will go well. Good luck with it either way. Reap what you sow, Homestead. Which is the best tasting bird? There's no real difference. Quail or quail. I don't know that there's any real difference between, brown quail versus the white quail versus, there's none. They're all pretty much the same. When it comes to Coturnix anyway, there may be some difference between, a Coturnix versus a bobwhite versus a Gamble's versus a California, but I don't know that I can answer those questions for you. I've eaten bobwhite plenty of times. But they were wild bobwhite, not domestic bobwhite. I don't know if there would be a difference. I don't notice that there's a huge difference between the meat of them and the domestic Coturnix that I raise, though. All right. Rhonda says, I'm going to have to get a bigger sandbox for the quail. Yep, definitely have to get a bigger sandbox for them. They love the sandboxes. Good night to you, Armed American, as well. And Reap What You Sow says, Chris, I think my quail eggs are no good. I put the first eggs in the incubator that was laid. Well, if it was the first eggs that were laid, yeah, you probably need to give them just a little bit more time. Usually takes a couple of weeks when they start laying to get fertile eggs out of it. So, yeah, that's a pretty common thing, though. Don't stress about it. Just collect eggs for a week and, give them a couple of weeks when they start laying, collect your eggs, and then start incubating. Yep, Square Body says Chris does have at least one video processing quail. I do. I have one video processing quail, and it's again marked adult content because they don't like butchering. So, all right. And Rhonda says I'm having a hard time finding scissors to process a quail with scissors. Which scissors did you use, and do you have a link in your Amazon affiliates? I don't know if I have a link to them in my Amazon affiliates. I don't have any, they're not special scissors. They're just scissors, and they work just fine. I don't find any, if you can find some like poultry shears or something, they might be slightly better, but, Look at that. I got a $4.99 super chat from Fred Flintstone. Thank you so much. Says, dang it, I'm late. Do you plant flowers in your vegetable garden? I don't plant flowers in mine. Marigolds are a good option if you want to plant in your vegetable garden because they do tend to kind of keep the rabbits away and stuff like that. I don't personally plant flowers in my vegetable garden. My wife is the kind of a non-vegetable gardener. She likes the flowers and the house plants and things. I'm more of the vegetable gardener, and I pretty much stick on vegetables. So, all right. So Rhonda again. I don't have a link to them. I just use a regular pair of household scissors. They work just fine. They're a fairly sturdy pair, but I couldn't tell you what brand they are. All right. Guys, I'm sorry to cut this short. I know we still got comments coming in, but I have a little bit of work to do for my job that pays me off. I mean, I got a couple of super chats. I guess you guys are paying me too, but I got to go do this or I will lose my daytime job. Well, maybe not lose it this one time, but I do have deadlines to meet. I got to go get a couple of things done. I got to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I appreciate it. I'm so glad that things worked out. We didn't have more technical problems. Again, hopefully we will see everybody here again next week. God bless each and one of you. Oh, and I do need some ideas here. We're getting ready to launch the Kickstarter on the light. So come back to this video after it posts if you would. Leave me a comment on what you would think a good reward would be for small dollar amounts. Like, when you go to Kickstarter, there's always like, people want to donate $5 or $1 or something like that. What would be a good reward for that? What should I give people that want to donate at that level? And again, don't make it something ridiculously expensive because it's $1 or $5. I can't afford that. But thank you again. Have a good night, everybody. God bless each and every one of you.